Welcome to Call Me Didi, everyone. I'm your host Diva.
And I'm your host Sanchi, and let's get into today's episode. Diva, do you want to do your highlight of the week?
My highlight of the week was obviously Diwali. It's been a really good festive week. Met a lot of people this week. I'm feeling a bit socially drained now because it's been just lots of events. But no, it's just been such a happy week. We decorated the house, which is really nice. Went to the Gurudwara, which was really nice. But yeah, I love festivals, so this was really nice.
Nice, and I also really enjoyed our puja.
Because it puja.
Yeah, I mean, it was so wholesome because we were like, oh, we should do something of our own. And then we cleaned our house very quickly, and then we set up a little puja station here. And because we don't have any statues, so we were like, okay, let's put our Bhagavad Gitas there. And we did it, and it was so wholesome. And then we went for our dinner, which was really nice.
Yeah, this was my first time ever doing puja on my own.
Oh.
I've always been in other people's pujas or at home in India, but never, I've never done.
So that's really nice, no? It was like our own little ritual.
Yeah, it was actually really cute.
Yeah.
It was. What was your highlight of the week?
My highlight was, of course, my launch.
Yeah.
Oh, because it was just 6 months of effort and time and energy and everything, and it finally launched. And even though it did not go as I thought it would go, it was still a huge achievement. I went from just an idea into actually implementing it and launching it into the world. I was so proud of myself.
Yeah, so proud of you. And you've obviously put in so much time and energy and effort into launching an e-commerce business. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. So today's topic is how to start an e-commerce business, because it was highly requested on our Instagram as well. Lots of people wanted to listen to it.
So we were like, why not do it? Because Diva also has some e-commerce experience. She's started 2 businesses in the past.
One properly, one just for the heck of it.
I mean, but you still invested in getting the inventory and everything.
Yeah.
It still counts.
Yeah, I guess. 2 failed businesses.
No, you get experience.
But I think failed businesses are so cool because every time I've tried anything, I've learned so much out of it. I would say if you're spending, let's say spending $500. It's $500 is very less for any inventory. But let's say you're spending very little on inventory, right? And you use that money to start a business. The learnings you get out of starting a business, even if it fails, is just unmatchable. It is think of that as an investment into your learning.
Yeah, it's investment into your life.
Literally. We'll get into this later, but doing that first business on my own and learning everything through that then got me really excited about the marketing field.
Yeah.
And that's how I, in fact, got my job in marketing, because I had experience on my own. So what you can learn out of a business is invaluable.
That's true. That's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to get into how to start an e-commerce business?
Yeah. How about we start with our experiences with it first? So why don't you tell everyone an overview of what your journey looked like with the launch, but a really high level overview.
Yeah, okay. So I just knew that I wanted to start an e-commerce business. What, where, how, I didn't know anything. So I was like, I'm going to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And then I realized I really enjoy talking about self-love. So I was like, okay, that's going to be my niche. That's going to be the audience that I serve, anyone who's interested in building the self-love. So I was like, what helped me build the self-love? So I was like, okay, journaling was one of the biggest things that helped me. So I will start with the journal as a product, and maybe down the line I'll expand into other different areas that serve that self-love purpose. So I decided on the product being journal. Then I decided on how I should go about it. So I started with the product creation, looked into getting supplier, all of that, and then started on marketing on the side through my social media, and then just figured out my target audience, my value proposition, and finally through steps I launched. And this is a very, very very, very high level overview.
High level overview. Yeah, no, that's good. I'll just quickly touch on my experience as well. So I had like a chai business, like chai blends is what I used to sell, and I used to hand make them. But the same thing, like it was an idea. It was honestly a passion project because I used to love chai and I just wanted to put that out in the world, especially Indian authentic chai. And so my business came out of an idea that I had, and then I worked out, okay, how I want to sell it, what my product should look like, what does the competitors landscape look like. And from there I started a website, launched it, and I started that with one of my best friends at the time. And yeah, and then so I had that website live for nearly 2 years before I shut it down. But yeah, that's my background. Maybe let's break this down step by step.
Yeah, let's do that. So, for this episode, we are going to take the approach of 4 P's, which is product, price, place, and promotion, because it's just easier to explain the background and like steps associated with it. So, let's start with product. So, the first point with the product, I think, is understanding your value proposition, which means what's the problem you're solving? Like, what is the problem in the market, and how does your product solve that problem? So, that is essentially your value proposition. And with that, you also figure out your target audience. So, who you're serving with that problem solving, because a lot of the times problems are associated to a certain group of people, and that's usually your target audience. So for example, for my product, it would be people who are trying to build self-love. It's usually a lot of women in their 20s, so it's Gen Z or millennial women. So that's my target audience. What is the problem I'm solving? I'm helping people build self-love, so people who lack self-confidence or self-trust, helping them build it through the product. So that's the problem, and my product is helping them solve it.
Yeah, cool. So once you figure that out, now you want to get into the actual products. You want to figure out what your product will look like. Is it handmade, custom made, or are you just reselling something that you can source from a third party website like Alibaba, for example? So figure out what you want your product to look like, and then you need to figure out your shipping. So where are you sourcing it from? If you're making it yourself, that's different, but often you'll need some sort of supplier, right? So are you getting it from overseas? Are you getting it from locally? If you are getting it overseas, I highly recommend figuring out your shipping costs with that, because in both of our experiences, we found that getting a product made in Australia or wherever you are locally can be expensive, but getting it made internationally could be cheap, like in countries like China or India. But when you do ship it, the cost of shipping can really add up. So just figure out which is cheaper, and that way you figure out what your product is going to cost and what it's going to be and where it's going to come from.
Yeah. And so once you have a little bit more understanding on your product and your value proposition and your target audience, then you get into doing branding for your product or your brand, basically. So you build it. So you figure out your logo, your colors, your typography, the look and feel of your brand. And it's usually based on your target audience, which is why it's so important to understand your target audience before you get into this step. Because if your target audience is women, right, you want to do colors and typography that attracts that type of specific target audience, and then you want to keep the name that attracts that type of people for your brand. So that's how you do your branding. This is a very high level information on how to do branding. It's of course way more detailed than that, so I would recommend researching about it or getting an expert to help you with branding.
Okay, now let's get into point 2, which is your pricing. So to do that, first figure out what the competitive landscape looks like. What are your competitors selling the product you want to sell it for? What is a budget price for it? What is a relatively sort of standard price for it? And what is a premium price that people are willing to pay for it? And then figure out where you want to position yourself based on your brand, of course, but also how much do you think you want to be charging your customers for the product.
Yeah, and once you've figured out what strategy you want to go for with your pricing, for example, you're going with the competitive pricing, right? And then you figure out, okay, this is the price you want to sell it for. And then you figure out, okay, if you want to keep about 70% as your gross margin, so you want your cost of the product to be not more than 30% of your selling price. So then you go back to your supplier and negotiate with them, or you find a supplier who fits into that budget, and including the shipping price and the product cost, you keep your cost in that range, and then you have overhead charges like your marketing costs or your other branding costs and all of that, and then you sell it in profit. This is really important to do because otherwise you end up selling it for a loss or like no profit no loss, and it takes a lot of time and energy to start a business, so it's always best to figure this out beforehand. Okay, so once you've figured out your pricing for the product, then we go into our third point, which is the place, and it's also like distribution. Now, because it's an e-commerce business, we're only going to talk about online sales channel you can use, first being your website, and the best platform to start your website is on Shopify. Now, we say Shopify because it has a really good integration process with a lot of different apps, and it also has a really seamless checkout process. There are also other platforms like Wix, Squarespace that you can use, but we have a great experience with Shopify, and so which is why we recommend that.
So that's all the websites. Then we can move on to the quick commerce platforms in India, which we won't touch on too much because we don't have a lot of experience with it, but that can be Blinkit, Zepto, Instamart, where you can also sell on. And then the last place you can also sell on, amongst others, is marketplaces. So these are your Amazon, your Etsy, eBay, any other, there are lots of marketplaces that I've sold on in the past, which is like in Australia, Handmade Marketplace. There are lots of places that you can actually find which has an audience of its own. So what's special about marketplaces is that it comes with an audience which you don't have to generate like you do for your website. But with that, there's also a premium price that these platforms will charge you. So just consider which one you want to do. You could also do both, just depends on how you want to price your product.
Yeah, and the final one in this is also like social media platforms. Like a lot of people will have audience on the social media platforms and they don't want to start through their website or marketplaces. So what they try and do is like sell through the social media platforms like Instagram, and they'll be like putting on the story or like posts and be like DM us to order, which is a very manual process, but it's a great one to start and test your product if it's getting any traction or not. And there's also another way to do it is like putting a link in bio, and you can create a landing page, very simple landing page. People can go and purchase through that, and it's a very easy to do process. So maybe you can test that if you're just starting out and you don't want to invest too much into a website or marketplaces.
And the final point that we're going to talk about is your promotion. So how you can actually promote your product. There's organic channels or your paid channels. The organic ways include SEO or email marketing or organic social media like Instagram, TikTok, all of these social media platforms that there are. And paid methods include performance marketing. So that's your Facebook ads, Google ads, any sort of ads. Your influencer marketing is also included in that as well. And so what this means is you're basically paying somebody to push your product, and that could be a business or a person.
Yep. And so when you're doing your organic marketing, like a lot of the times people have their own audience on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, podcasts, and that's like free distribution because a lot of people are on those platforms naturally. It also has like word of mouth. So if you're already started your business and you've already sold it to a lot of people, then they can just communicate to their friends and family, and that's like your organic marketing happening because they're telling their friends and family about it and you're not paying for it. Email marketing is where you just send people emails in their inbox, and it's usually free to do as well.
With that, you already need some sort of subscriber list. So you need people to have signed up to your email subscription. So then when you're either launching your business or you send regular emails, but you need like a database to send these emails to, right? So it is a very good ongoing method of marketing, but to start off the bat, it's like not going to do much for you when you launch a business.
Yep. And the final one, SEO, is basically search engine optimization, which means that when you're doing your website, you have keywords on there that will help you rank higher on Google when people come and search for it. For example, for my brand, if it's a journaling brand or if it's a self-love brand, if people come onto Google and type self-love journal and my website shows up on the top, that means I have a really good SEO in my on my website. So it's a very technical thing. So highly recommend getting help with it and like just understanding the basics of it when you're starting out as well.
Absolutely agree.
Okay, I think with that, we can wrap up this episode. We touched on it very, very quickly, and we tried to like cover most of the points, but of course, launching a business involves a lot of different moving parts, and
this could have easily been a 2-hour episode if we really got into the details. This will obviously require a lot of your own research. There are lots and lots of YouTube videos and tools out there, and you really have to get into it to solve every piece of the puzzle yourself.
Yeah, that's totally right. So just do your own research. I also did a course called First Day to First Sale through Shopify, and it really helped me break down a lot of different parts and understand all the parts in detail. So, and they have like lots of different worksheets attached to every section as well, which you can fill out for your own brand, and it will help you figure out a lot of different things. And it's really detailed, so it will genuinely help you figure out the why of the brand and how to do it, and like all those parts that are really, really daunting. It's easy to do once you have help, which is step-by-step help, and it's free to do, so we link it in the comments for you.
Yeah, and similarly, I also did a course on how to build a website, a Shopify website, which was also by Shopify, which made it really, really simple for me to take me through step by step, page by page. This is what you do. This is what the template looks like. Like, there are lots of resources. We link that one as well, but highly recommend looking for the resource that you want just on the internet. And yeah, do you have any final tips based on your experience with launching a business?
Yeah, the only tip I have is that don't hesitate to get experts in their field, or like any freelancers who you think can really help you with different moving parts, because acknowledging that there are so many things that require expert advice or like expert knowledge to do, and you wouldn't always have knowledge on everything. So like, even if you just have basic understanding and you get someone who does that thing for their job, it'll be really helpful, and it can make financial sense for you as well. You just need to do your research and find like good people, and once you have that, it gets really easy to bring everything together.
Yeah, I agree. I would just look out for people who, there are lots of sort of substandard service providers out there on places like Fiverr and stuff. Like, it's really good because you'll find lots of affordable options, but I'd highly recommend reviewing their work before sort of signing up with anyone.
Yeah, because a lot of times, like, even if their work is good, maybe their work ethic is not good. Like, you can see that the work they've produced is really good, but maybe they don't communicate well, or maybe they don't like do the work on time and all that. So like, make sure to get a little bit of reviews and check their background and everything before you actually sign them on, because otherwise that can really impact how you're launching. But just a few things to keep in mind. Yeah.
I agree.
Do you have any tips?
My only tip would be that when you're figuring out your costs for your business, yes, there's a cost involved with your product and launch and, getting your website together and all of that. But most likely there will also be a cost involved when you're actually running your business. So unless you're doing only organic marketing, if you are doing any sort of paid marketing, which includes influencer marketing or, your ads that you run, that can be quite expensive. And this was a big learning that came from my first business, because I underestimated how much cost it takes to actually run ads. And yeah, it's a big part of business. The biggest business run ads just because it's a way to make sales. But so what I learned from that was, very often, at least in the first few months when you're running ads, you have to do a lot of tests, and a lot of times they're not going to work for you. So you're technically just burning money without getting any sales. So just accommodate for that cost if that's the path you want to take.
Okay, with that, I think we're going to end this episode. I hope you got some value out of it. And if you did, we'd love for you to tell us, leave a comment, share it with your friends because they might benefit from it. It helps us grow. Put it on your story, and it means the world to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you in our next episode.
Bye.